everybody. I am Jennifer Ferguson with Artistic Painting Studio, and I am so excited to be here with Hometalk Live today and share with you one of my fun projects. And well, I'm going to get started with that. Why don't you guys share with me where you guys are tuning in from? And I'm going to start to tell you about the project we're going to do today. So this is a really fun frame that came with a plaque, and I'm going to turn this into a work of art for you today. So, Dan, is everybody kind of getting on with us here today and telling us where they're tuning in from? We are in the lovely Huntington Beach, California, and weather here is probably in the 60s. So where is everybody else coming in from? Nobody tuning in, Dan? You're not going to talk to me?
We got Doug from Arkansas, Doug and Kim, Sandy from Ohio.
Awesome.
Karen from St. Augustine, Florida.
That's wonderful. It's so great to see people coming in from all over the place. So I'm going to get started, you guys, and we are going to get going here with DIY paint. And this happens to be one of my favorite chalky paints to work with. And the color that I chose is Old 57. And I'm going to just base coat this entire piece. And I'm using a foam brush so I can get it on here nice and smooth. And isn't that a fun, pretty color to work with? And with doing this, definitely going to need to put on 2 complete layers so I can get nice opaque coverage. And I'm just kind of brushing back and forth so that I can keep a nice straight vertical line going through it, because it is going to kind of give a little bit of a brush stroke. But when you are using the chalk paints, most of them will go on probably the smoothest when using a foam brush.
Yes.
And you can always get into like a foam roller if you need to, if you've got a bigger surface, but I figured the foam brush would be pretty quick and easy just to get that painted. Now, like I said, I'm going to definitely allow this to completely dry and put on a second coat. And that's one thing when you are working with any of the chalk paints, I have found that it's really important when you do a coat and you're planning on doing something else over it, let it completely dry. Don't try to get this to opaque in one coat, because it'll almost start to just reverse it and do what we call like a resist and pull it off instead of putting it on. So I'm going to put this on my drying rack, so excuse me a second as I move out of the frame here. And a little bit about the DIY paints. You can find these online. They're wonderful. It's under Debbie's Design Diary. And they are a chalk, clay, and mineral-based paint. So there's no latex, no acrylic. It's a green product. They're really fun to work with and great coverage. So the frame I'm going to get started on while we're waiting for the other piece to dry. And this I'm going to paint in what's called mermaid tail. So I'm going to give a full coat to this frame. And you can tell that I did not, prime anything first. And that's one thing nice about working with chalk paints, is that they do give you nice coverage and will bond to a lot of surfaces without having to prime them first. So it kind of eliminates at least one step that you might have to do. And
hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Do we have a giveaway?
We do have a giveaway today, and we also have hair in my mouth. Let me get that out of the way. The giveaway today is going to be a wonderful tote that is being given away from Hometalk. And let me look at the question. So the question for today to win the tote is, what color would you paint your frame? And if you guys will share that with us, I know towards the end of this segment, Hometalk will pick a winner, and I'll get to share who that is. That's always a fun thing. So as I'm probably boring you guys all to death, couple of things about when I'm brushing things out. I'm working from the corner, and once I get from that corner, I start coming back to this side, so that as I'm creating another brush stroke, I kind of fan into where I'm working so that I don't have a whole bunch of real rough looking start and stop motions, and that way I can smooth it out. I always try not to have to sand in between coats if I can avoid it, so the smoother I can actually apply my paint to my projects, that's always best for me, because like I said, I'm not one who likes to get back in there and sand. I'm also using what is called a art wash brush, and this is just, it's a soft bristle, but the bristles also have a lot of resistance so that it will push and pull your paint for you and allow you to kind of smooth it out. So these are really fun to work with, and the reason why I went with a brush instead of using a foam brush on the frame is that this is a little bit of a rougher surface, and I knew that that foam brush would just get torn up or caught on the wood, so I definitely switched brushes because that. So just kind of find whatever, you know, works for you as far as which brushes. You know, I'm always trying to figure out the quickest way and the easiest way to get something done. And then I've got my last side here. And I also want you guys to know, see the way that I was turning this frame. I was turning it so that my left hand always had a dry place to hold onto. So that as I was turning it around, I'm not sticking my hand in the wet paint and trying to stay somewhat clean as I'm doing this. Also, you guys, like I had said, you know, we're here in beautiful Huntington Beach, and it's been nice and warm here. Today is a little bit cooler, but what's the weather like where all of you guys are from? Because I know it's kind of been crazy. I've been seeing a little bit of everything going on.
And everyone that's tuned in, don't forget to share this with all your friends.
Oh, please do. We love for you to hit the share button and the hearts. You know, we never have too many hearts. So we always do appreciate that. And again, I will make sure that we have some links posted. I'm not sure if anybody was able to come on live today with us from Debbie's Design Diary, but I'll make sure that you guys can find the link to her paints too. There are retailers all over the United States to be able to find this product, so I'm sure you guys might be able to find somebody local that's carrying it. So the frame is all painted in the Mermaid, and we are going to let this dry, and I've got to get this over into the drying rack so I can get it out of my way. And it wasn't as neat as I thought it was, so I'm going to kind of rinse my hands off here so I don't get the next section dirty yet. Okay, so here is the plaque area that I started first. And this one already has 2 coats of paint on it, so it's dry and ready to go. And what I'm going to show you guys here is what I refer to as a dry brush technique. And I'm going to be doing this with the mermaid tail. So we're kind of tying in the 2 colors with the frame and the picture that we're going to paint. And again, I'm going to stay in a foam brush just for being a little bit easier and quicker. But we still want to do what I would call a dry brush. So I put a little bit of paint on here. I'm working it into my foam plate so that I don't have a ton of paint on there at one time. And then I'm just going to brush it on to the edges, and I'm using a light touch so that I'm getting more color on the outside edge, and then kind of dragging it over the full painted area so that I get a little color that just kind of blends and bleeds throughout, and it'll pick up the texture of the paint even underneath. So it's going to kind of look more like a weathered piece of wood when you're done, because it, when you're dry brushing, it just picks up texture and just kind of gives that look. If you're not sure which color might have been on first, which color was on second, and that's the whole idea. We want to kind of confuse people and not for them to know. I'm just going to dry this off a little bit more so I can control it, but I want to bring in some areas a little further into the plaque. And the wonderful thing is, even though you can see this great contrast, and that's why I also love to work with this, is when the mermaid tail is wet, you can really see the contrast and see what you're doing, but it's going to dry down a lot lighter, and that's one of the things with chalk paints, is it does dry a lot lighter, so you can get a little bit more aggressive and bold with the dry brushing and not have to worry about it, because this will be so much softer and lighter. And sometimes I have to do this and let it dry before I can kind of critique and see where I'm at and if I want to add more color or not. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm drying some of it off. I'm going to come back to this side and start the other edge. But I'm going to try to remember, as this is drying down, I'm going to try to see if I can pull this back out while I'm working on the frame and show you guys how light it's drying, because the wet to dry is quite a bit different. And I'm sure Dan has gotten in here nice and close while I'm doing this so that you guys can see. And now again, I'm just dragging back and forth, trying to pick up all that texture underneath and highlight
what
it.
color ideas might they be able to do this project in?
Oh my gosh, whatever colors are your favorite colors. I'm always looking for stuff that just kind of speaks to me. At the end, I'll show you one that I did in red, and I'm trying to remember what color. I think I did actually like a purple underneath it. It was kind of a fun combination, but pretty much any color that you like. I mean, I'm doing more of a tone on tone, so these are both in that turquoise teal coloration, but you can do colors that are in different families, and you know, I guess it's just whatever you like. But at the end, I'll show you the red one, okay? So I'll tease you guys to stay tuned so that you can see the second version that I actually did, which was fun. So how much of the dry brushing you do is personal. Like I said, it's going to dry lighter, so I'm definitely getting a lot on here that seems like it's probably going to be busy, but it's going to lighten up so much, I'm not worried about it. And the other thing is too, because you're in a chalk paint, let's say that I'm not real happy maybe with this little mark. If I take even just a little damp piece of cheesecloth, I could get in here and rub that out and make that disappear. And so, you know, that's one of the beauties of working with chalk paint, because you're not like stuck with something. Because it doesn't have any latex or acrylic in it, you can get in there and you can fix things, okay? I love when kind of you get marks that are just kind of happen on accident and you can't control everything, because I think it creates more character for backgrounds like this. But sometimes you might not be happy with it, something, so it's nice to know that you can make something disappear if you're not really happy with it. So this is about as much color as I'm going to add, and now we're just going to allow this to dry, and I'm going to move over to the frame once again. And we're kind of bouncing back and forth between the frame and the picture, okay? So the next thing, and so as I am picking my colors here, and like I said, I was in a real teal mood. I love the old 57 and the mermaid tail, and they have another color called sea glass. I mean, those are kind of like some of my favorites, but tell us what color maybe you would paint your frame. So the next step, like I said, is we're now going back to the frame. And
everybody, we appreciate it if you hit your like button and share with all your contacts.
That's awesome. We would love that. So here is just a little sample that I did with the mermaid tail, because I want to tell you about the foil adhesive and the whole part's about doing foiling, because we're really going to bling out the frame with this. So to do foils, and I'm just going to grab my foils, okay? These are the foils that I'm going to apply to the frame. They're basically a metallization that is on the back of some clear plastic, okay? So the color that we're going to transfer is going to be this teal color, but the side that we transfer is actually the back of it. And to get this to work, we need an adhesive. So the product we're going to use is actually my own brand, and it's called Foil Adhesive. This product here is applied to the surface, and it just looks milky white when it comes out of the container. And you just brush it onto your surface. It's going to look kind of milky white. Oops, got myself on that one. Normally I'm not that messy, okay? It looks milky white when you pull it out of the container, but as it dries, it will dry 100% clear. So what you do is apply this. You just want a nice, thin, even coat, 100% coverage, because if you miss a spot, there'll be no transfer of the foil. So it has to have the adhesive there. Once you get the adhesive onto the surface, you just want to allow this to dry to a firm tack. And I say no less than 30 to 45 minutes. If you're in a really humid area, make sure you wait maybe at least an hour or longer. But you definitely want this to sit for a while until it dries to a firm tack. And when it dries to a firm tack, it's going to just be completely clear. It's going to look a little shiny, so the frame now has a little bit of a sheen to it, and it's really, really tacky. So now that the frame is ready to go, all we have to do is take these sheets, and you can see I actually picked a color that's really close to the foil color. And we take these sheets, and you always want the pretty side facing up. So the shiny, beautiful side should be facing up to you. And all you do is rub this onto the surface. And you can decide if you just want, I mean, I'm just using a piece of cheesecloth here, and I'm rubbing the surface. And then I'm going to peek underneath and see how much transferred. Now, depending on what you're looking for, if you want a lot of the base coat to show, you don't have to transfer any more. If you want more of the foil to show, we can also use this little scrub brush, okay? And if I use the scrub brush, that'll actually transfer more of the foil because it's giving more pressure to it. And then more of the foil will actually transfer. And then you can see when it's transferring, it's taking the foil off, and then again, we're actually creating that clear plastic. So I've cut a bunch of sheets. Oops, wrong color. Okay, I've cut a couple different colors here. I want to do the teal first, okay? So just apply the foil, rub it on. And if you've never done foils before, this really does go pretty quick and easy, and it's about the shiniest metallic that you can create. And if you want to add more foil, maybe in a place that it didn't transfer really well, you can always go back there and add a little bit more.
Where might customers purchase this foil?
The foils can be found on my website. And my website is artisticpaintingstudio.com, and I'm sure somebody's got the link out there. If not, we'll make sure we post the link for you in a little bit. But when you get to my website, there is a shop button on there. Just press that shop button, and there's a drop-down menu that shows, and you'll find everything, okay? So I'm just turning the foil around to where I always have a section of the foil that has the color on it. As I'm moving around the frame, and that way you can get as much coverage as you want. But look how pretty that is. So you can see from just paint it to where you've got your paint and your foil, and you've got that beautiful shiny finish. Really makes a fun project. And you can see this just goes quick. So all I did was just kind of cut the strips up ahead of time, so I'd just be able to grab these, and tried to cut them to a width that I thought would work pretty well. And then as I'm doing this, so how many of you out there have actually refinished some frames? I think it's always kind of fun to take some of your old frames that you've had around your house and give them some new life with just doing something new to them. It's amazing how you can transform them completely. So now we just have about one more side here to do. So if you guys, if somebody's new on here and just tuned in, I'm Jennifer Ferguson with Artistic Painting Studio, and today we're working on a fun project where we're using foils and chalk paint, and we're also going to be even using a roller to finish out our plaque that we're working on. And if you've missed anything at the end of this video, once it's posted, you guys can definitely log back in and watch it from the very beginning, so that way you can catch everything that I'm doing in case you did miss something. So at this point, you see I'm just even using my fingernails. That works too, especially when you've got areas that where you've got a groove. Sometimes it's just easier to use your nails to get in there. So I have all the teal down, and then I have this navy blue, which I thought would be fun to maybe just get a little bit on here. So the only place the navy will possibly hit is just an area where the teal did not get attached to the foil adhesive. So I thought it'd be kind of fun just to bring in a little bit of color randomly. So, you know, it's one of those personal things on how detailed you want to get, how busy you want to make your project. Sometimes it's just fun to get multiple colors kind of blending together. And I mean, you can keep adding color and adding color. I mean, it's just one of those things where you can just keep playing. And if I really want it to work, you know, a little bit more on even the teal, I could get 100% coverage, but I like the way that the paint was coming through, because the paint's real matte finished, and then your foil's really shiny. So I've always liked how the matte and the shiny kind of come together. So at this point, your frame would be completely done, but you do have to put a top coat over this. That's one thing about the foil adhesive, is the foil adhesive was on here 100% coverage, and I only have maybe 80% coverage with foil. So anywhere there is no foil, it's going to be sticky. So you'd want to put a clear coat completely over the frame just to seal the top coat.
Okay, we're going to wrap up in like the next 3 minutes.
Okay, so we got to be quick here. Okay. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're back to our plaque, and I'm going to show you guys, I guess, as quickly as I possibly can here. I thought I had more time. This is a stamping roller, and the stamping roller we're going to use to create a beautiful pattern on this. So I've got some paint loaded on there, and I'll show you guys how to load this. This is the Crinoline color, again by DIY Paints, and I'm using a serving tray to put the paint on. And with the serving trays, it just kind of gives you a bigger surface so that you can get this big roller loaded without having to get a regular paint tray out. I always add water to the paint to thin it down, because it soaks into the foam rollers way better. So let me try to get this loaded quickly. And you just put the foam into the handle and roll on your paint, okay? And you want to get 100% coverage onto the roller. Like I said, I already had some paint on here, so I'm just loading it to freshen it up. And then you grab whichever pattern design you want to use and load it into the front of the roller. Once you have both parts in there, the handle is keeping everything in position with the pins, okay? So once you have everything in, I always roll off on some paper, so I'm just going to roll off onto the table. And when I do that, it loads the paint onto the pattern. So the last thing that I'm just going to do is just go ahead and roll the design over the plaque that I've distressed. And there we have some really beautiful, fun artwork. And we can put the two of these together, and that's the final project there. So you end up with some beautiful framed artwork, You know, this is soft enough that you could write some words on here if you wanted to write home, happiness, or do whatever. And then I'm going to give you a sneak peek of the red version that we did here. So everybody was asking for some other colors. This is one that we did in red. So any other questions I can answer, or anybody piping in there want to know something that I didn't cover? Well, do we have a winner for the tote bag yet? Has anybody given us that so we can share who the winner is?
The winner of today's giveaway is Mana Blankenship.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And I guess we need to end. We need to end quickly today. Okay, so thank you guys. Make sure to hit your subscribe button at the end of this video. And again, please tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for another Home Talk Live. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been fun.